Hello there, amigos. Today we'll be doing a tournament interview with Elijah Wade, who got first place overall, undefeated, at Windsor ARG.
Hey, how's it going?
Cool. So, congrats on topping at your event, especially you got first place, Mr. Champion. How do you feel, man?
It felt really good overall because I really need this to kind of get my name out there and show people that I do know what I'm talking about in regards to the community for Aqua Forest and both deck building. So, getting this win, especially going undefeated, I feel is a really good statement. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a small ARG, so people will take what they will from the results, but at least they can see that, like, in terms of precious situations, like going undefeated was a possibility for me. So I'm pretty happy
Oh, yeah.
overall.
No, that's really great. I think that helps with your credibility as a player, too.
I
And
definitely.
also, oh,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say I definitely can agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And I know I've talked to other players that haven't topped, but have very good explanations. So it's not to downvote any of those people, but it's just having the good explanations and to have the tops to back it up. It just makes it much more credible in a sense.
Yeah,
Would you
definitely,
agree? Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So before we begin, did you want to say anything else?
Um, sure. I'd like to also mention that my deck list is slightly unconventional. So what most people are going to be used to is the typical build with Mitros as a starter, no Saberflow Sailors, only 3 Alexandros. And the reason being is when I went into this event, I felt
Hmm.
like I needed to be able to see my pieces more consistently. Now there's going to be an argument to where, like, if you don't run the Saberflow Sailors, if you would have ran the other restanders, technically those Saberflow Sailors you would have seen would have been the same cards and you still draw anyways. So like your
Yeah, I get it.
Adelaides and whatnot.
That may be
But
true.
the other factor that a lot of people
Mhm.
don't really take into consideration is the ability to draw and set yourself up defensively. There's a lot of times where I'd expend my hand and I was able
Mhm.
to amass a better hand that I would have been able to guard with beforehand. And that was only possible because of stuff like the Saberful Sailors. So like I really highly value them.
I would
On top
agree.
on top of that, running the bubble edge over the Mitros was super
Mhm.
clutch because most of the time people in bad matchups will just put the Mitros in the front, right, and poke with it until their opponent kills it. Well, if my opponents didn't kill it, then I'd just resolve it in plus. So they felt more pressured to kill it before
Mhm.
I started getting going because I could just resolve it and still get a card off anyway. Whereas, say if it was the Mitros, they just let it slide until I ride grade 3 and they can start stratting and blow it up, unless they're Kagro, of course.
Yeah, or another deck that can blow it up or lock it.
Yeah, so like, whereas like Mitros a lot of times he'd just like coast by and sit. I forced my opponent at some point in time to waste an attack before I started striding. If I put that starter in the front row, which a lot of times was pretty critical.
Reminds me kind of like Grenache and Night Rose.
Yeah, actually, that is exactly the premise that I used when I was putting it in the front.
Mhm.
And uh my general opinion of how I wanted to play most of the games out today, knowing that it's going to be going against either a lot of control or a lot of explosive first strat decks, was that I wanted to pull out as many cards from their hand early as I could in order to better set up the first turn kill for Alexandros, if not for sure guarantee the second.
Oh wow.
So what I ended up doing a lot was I utilized my Melanias and Ortheas early, like very heavily, while boosting triggers. And I was forcing my opponents to take unfavorable trades, killing draw triggers, while I was mainly conserving my restanders and stuff like that, and only committing my resist grade ones.
So when you say about Melania and Orphea, do you mean like as boosters in the early game?
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah.
what you're
So, for instance, the Kagro player I played against in round 1,
Yeah.
I had a hand of Orthea, Melania, 2 triggers, a Tidal Assault, and then I drew into a Saberflow.
Hmm.
So I dropped almost my entire hand on grade 1. I rushed him,
Holy
and I
crap.
put him. I put him to 5 damage before he rode 3. So he pretty much had. I was at 2 damage to his 5 damage, and he had to first stride, and he had nothing great to go into. Like even at that point, Extend wasn't going to save him. So he did the best that he could with what he had, but he was just
Mhm.
far behind. He could never really recover.
So can I stop you there? Like, so when you're doing
Yeah.
the Overlord matchup, you tend to go for the early rush.
Not always, but since I had the hand, I figured I could probably pull it off and recuperate because I had the Saberflow in hand.
Ah.
So if he counter rushed me and I felt I wasn't in a position to continue the rush, I had the
Mhm.
Saberflow, right? So I'd
Right.
just ride the title, hold the Saberflow in hand, and then when I start striding, I can recuperate my hand a bit from rushing early, and
Yeah.
I'll still get that damage on the board.
Yeah.
But I discovered very early on his hand was very weak. I believe he had 3 grade 3s in hand or something like that.
Ooh, that's
So
rough.
so yeah, as soon as I saw his counter turn on when he rode grade 2 was very passive, I immediately just dropped my hand and forced him to 5.
That's a good observation.
Thank you.
Good job. Yeah. I typically try to like make sure I don't call as much unless it have to call negative to get the right Thavas for that matchup, and then they're gonna take the Vanguard attacks 9 times out of 10 anyway, so they're like 2 to 3 damage by the stride turns, and then I'll just try to explode on first stride as well with Saberflow.
Yeah, actually a lot of the way I played can
Mhm.
largely be attributed to a disagreement I had with somebody in Proof's Discord, even though he's a friend. His
Okay.
name is Riggs, and we were just talking about how because his build is the normal typical high rolly build with like
Yeah.
the Benedicts and such. And well, you guys in the Discord know I personally don't like playing Benedict because I have very bad luck with riding off rides. And my build's
Mhm.
mostly just for consistency. But something you said
Understandable.
that kind of like not triggered, but like just stuck in the back of my mind was that my build can't rush like his can. So when I saw the opportunities available, I made sure that I could rush in the
Mhm.
tournament, and it was especially beneficial because a lot of players locally know that I like to play conservatively. Like I don't usually play the deck very aggressively until I need to. So
Mhm.
by changing up my playstyle and playing more aggressive, I threw a lot of people off, like massively. They were not
Mhm.
expecting it. For
So
instance,
you so
sorry,
you
go ahead.
faced some people that you knew in the
Oh,
tournament.
everybody I knew
Oh wow.
because the area.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. So like people who I was facing, they didn't actually really understand how to deal with it because I never usually play that aggressive with the deck.
Mhm. Makes sense. I do have some questions about your deck, if
Absolutely.
that's okay. So the first thing I noticed from your deck pick, you have 4 Alexandros. Did you ever go to the fourth one?
In this situation, no. The closest I got was when I played against Gridora. I went to the
Hmm.
third.
Makes
However,
sense.
my hand wasn't the greatest going into it. Like I didn't even see a resist unit until after I strode for the first time.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had the units committed to the rearguard columns, but I didn't really have the means to keep up like really aggressive turns. So more or less, what it actually came down to was that third Alexandros was too big for him to guard, but there's a really crucial grade 2 turn. I committed my rear guards knowing I had no resist and knowing I had to get stuff on the board before he rode 3 on the
Ooh.
grade 2 turn.
Hmm.
And I rushed him. This left me with 4 cards in hand. He had a pretty sizable hand, so I was really worried about the backswing, but he chose to play really defensive. And he swung one rear guard at my Vanguard, which I guarded, his Vanguard at my Vanguard, which I took, and his rear guard at my title, which I also let him kill. I feel like if he would have just put everything face with 4 cards in my hand, he would have put me in a really awkward position where either I would have had to give up the ability to stride, or I would have had to keep rushing him on grade 2 and force like him to sea breeze me. But I feel like his
Oh,
decision not to rush me with 4 cards in hand was a large part of why I was able to stabilize and kind of clinch
yeah, that
that
gives
game.
you time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I relied on on him not knowing the matchup because I never played him since he had Ghidorah, so he didn't know the matchup. Whereas I played it quite a few times on area,
Hmm.
so it was purely like I was just hoping that my experience in the matchup would be able to outmuscle his experience, and it ended up working out because I don't believe he realized that you could just sit resist units in the back and call into the same column and make one column effective for the entire game.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks to ruler. Right.
Yeah. So
Cool.
like ruler was massive for sure.
So then in this tournament, you didn't use the fourth Alexandros, but going into the tournament, what did you think of the fourth Alexandros?
I
Like,
expect
when would it come up?
I expected a lot more control to be honest. Um,
Hmm.
In my matchups, I only faced one Chaos and one Ghidorah, and everything else was either like mid-rangey, one Overlord, or just like aggressive. So I actually expected to use it more than once, but I never even got to use it once. That said, uh in a lot of testing against like Chaos and Ghidorah, I don't mind playing more conservatively because my
Hmm.
build I can draw out, I can play it slow, I can
Yeah.
grind game with them, and then I can do the really big fourth Alexandros, which basically is a game ender for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely by that
So
point.
like so like my deck can play the long game. I don't mind it necessarily. I don't prefer to though. So if I can finish
Right.
earlier, I would.
Okay.
In that slot, if I didn't run the fourth Alexandros though, is going to be a flood hazard. If anybody's
Okay.
curious.
Yeah. To get the quad check, basically.
Yes. Yeah,
Gotcha.
basically to have a turn against Chaos where I could still draw out and do okay without having to overextend before I'm ready to end the game.
Right. You don't want to waste a counter blast on an Alexandros just yet.
Yeah, because like the Force through a Galphilia turn on minimum is you're roughly looking at 1 to 2 cards from hand because they're going to kill something, then you got to play something, then you got to play something or to replace another unit.
Yeah.
Um, Anywhere from 2 soul and a bunch of counter blasts you're just forcing through. So if you don't win on that turn, you're going to be in a really awkward position on their following turn. A
Yeah.
really vulnerable one that I found in
Hmm.
testing I didn't really enjoy at all. So that's generally the reason why I had the flood hazard in there.
Hmm.
However, just due to trends in my locals, I knew a lot of people were really disillusioned with Chaos because uh in playtesting against me so much, they felt it wasn't a very strong deck, but I felt that their results were largely biased due to always playing against Aquas and not really against other decks. But
Right. Different matchups.
it's largely a meta thing. Like I knew my locals and like surrounding areas weren't too happy with Chaos, so I figured I could
Hmm.
get away with having a bit of a weaker Chaos matchup in regards to having a better Ghidorah matchup.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. There's other cards that I noticed. Like you mentioned about the Saberflow, it helped you a ton.
Yeah.
I played four. How come you played three?
We talked about this actually beforehand,
Hmm.
and the night before, I did almost swap to 4 Saberflow. My reason
Woohoo!
being experience. I'm
Uh-huh.
too used to having the 3 Saberflow for Title Assault, and I felt
Yeah,
that changing that right before a tournament might throw me off. Because
that's understandable. Yeah.
like I'm not gonna profess to know the numbers, but I
Hmm.
know generally the probability of what rear guards I'll see at what point in the game based on what I've seen beforehand. So that extra saber flow, don't get me wrong, probably would have been a godsend, but at the end of the day, it was actually title assault that probably won me most of my games.
Yeah, and that's
So
understandable too, because title is still good. Yeah.
yeah, title assault actually single handedly won me the final round against Asha. So
Oh, how did it do that? Just early rush or late game?
well, game one, I had a saber flow on Vanguard, and I had title assault. I had a Melania behind one, and my starter behind the other, and then I just had Petros behind my Vanguard.
Hmm.
So I swung with the right title assault, knowing that it was just going to be 9-9, and
Hmm.
he took one guarded one. So I swung a
Okay.
Vanguard, and I still had the title assault that was going to be boosted by the Melania standing.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, he did not know pretty much the lose-lose scenario of if you hit a crit when you guard Vanguard on title. So he wanted to pass me. I hit the crit, and he's like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm getting hit." I was like, "Nope, all effects of title." He's like, "What?" So I swung 14 twice with 14-16 with a crit, and he couldn't guard it. So I put him to 5 damage. This is round one of the finals. So he's at
Uh-huh.
5 damage, just about to ride grade 2. He never got to
Yeah.
ride 3. I felt pretty bad, not gonna lie.
Holy crap! Talk
And
about
then
clutch.
the second game, I had one title. I had on the grade 2 turn, which allowed me to put him to 4 damage. He killed
Hmm.
that because he learned from the first game. And so the following turn, I wasn't able to stride, but I had another Petros. So I ended up having a column of Petros Melania, my Thavas Vanguard, and Orthea behind it. And Petros Melania. So I swung 11, he guarded both. Then I swung Vanguard, hit a crit, killed him 4-6.
Wow.
You couldn't guard a 28k Vanguard with no
Right.
G guards.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
because he was still in grade 2 at that point, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's rough. But that's good. That came out in clutch for you, especially at the final round.
yeah.
So
So
yeah, you definitely feel like you didn't regret your decision right
yeah,
before
no,
the tournament.
having the
That's
title,
good.
the extra title, is amazing. And there's times where like title is mostly useless, but for the most part of the day, him and Adelaide put in a lot of the work. It's really hard
That's good.
to really say which did more than the other, but like there's
Yeah.
various situations where like, or sorry, not the Adelaide, the Saberflow. Various situations where the Saberflow put in like the work, and there's situations where the title did all the work.
Right.
So
I agree. Yeah. Awesome.
yeah,
So one of the risky things that I've noticed you're doing is you only have 7 grade 3s, and then you're only playing 3 Nikki.
yeah.
So how did you feel reducing the fourth Nikki to 3 with still having only 7 grade 3s?
At first, I was really worried, but then I recall that I usually run 6 grade 3s in most of my decks anyways, and 4 stride fodder, so it worked out to be the same
The
either
same
way.
ratio, kind of. Yeah, I see.
So it's not something I'm super uncommon with, and I typically
Hmm.
play decks that draw a lot. So
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
scariest when I go to stride first, to be
Yes.
honest.
Yeah. I see that. Yeah.
After
So
that,
and
like it smooths out.
right, because if you like get the grade 3 turn first, you have the chance of twin driving, which can give you the card you need to stride with next turn too.
Absolutely. Although I'm pretty known for denying first ride as much as possible, whether it be uh intentionally not riding on grade 1 or grade 2 sometimes. Like
Yeah.
either way, I
I
usually try to guarantee myself first ride.
No, I agree. I've actually done that more often now with Thavas. Typically staying on grade 1 for an extra turn, so I don't have to worry about this breeze.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get that. Because like
So
with Thavas, I felt like if they have a really strong first stride turn and they really hit you hard and you barely have any combo pieces to really do what you really want to do on your first stride, it's gonna be a losing game for you, really.
yeah, especially seeing as like a lot of the decks in the meta don't actually have the tools equipped to deal with early game anyhow, which we actually have. So it just
That's
boggles
true.
my mind when players concede first stride so easily. When
Hmm.
you're playing a deck with title assault, like you're actually playing a deck that says, "Please, like let me rush early." You don't even care if the titles die because we have Megiddo now. If you're in a matchup that isn't
Oh yeah,
control,
right.
so like just to not take advantage of the tools you have just seems kind of silly when you can play the game better than they do. You play 5 draw, whereas most decks, if they aren't playing draws, they just draw through their mechanics, which means they're locked behind GB. So you're
Yeah.
very well equipped to be able to G2 game in the deck.
Yes. That's what I was gonna also say. I noticed that you were playing 5 draw instead of 4 or the 6. You just wanted
Yeah,
the extra crit pressure, so you didn't want to go to the 6.
yeah.
But you still gonna draw.
I always played 7-5. This actually can be attributed to Adam Jackson on a list he had a long time ago, but I tried out those ratios and I fell in love. 7 crit. I mean, it's not 8, but you see that extra crit enough to where you know, because
Hmm.
you usually know what that crit is, and you
Yeah.
see that extra crit enough to where you know, and like where you can see it frequently. And it's just enough that it's in the sweet spot. While 5 draw still overall gives you 9 defensive triggers, which
Yeah.
gives you slightly over 50. It's like 56.75% defensive triggers on like your first
Right.
check, which is really good.
I see. I
So
get it. Yeah.
I know a lot of the math behind what my first trigger is most likely going to be. So I can kind of game it if I'm trying to defensive trigger or if I'm trying to trigger offensively.
Yeah. And stack it on a potential title as well or something else.
Yeah, like early on, I'm usually not going to check a crit. So I
Right.
usually play a lot more conservatively, assuming that I'm going to check either a draw or a heal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. With
like,
mine, I play 6. I do expect a draw, hopefully by the early game, giving me
yeah.
the extra card to work with.
And defensive triggering in Thavas is so big because like
Hmm.
not only is it the plus 5k and it makes it easier on your hand to guard, but like you have potentially a combo piece that you didn't have before, or maybe you drew into a guard option that you're just shy of drawing.
Right. It can make your turn from a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. I don't know where to sometimes.
Yeah, and especially like if you hit heals, defensively, that's huge.
Yeah,
Because
that also helps you. It's like a buffer, basically.
especially with how I like to play the deck, like I like to take damage early and then guard late.
Yeah.
I find it's a lot easier to manage that way.
Yeah, I usually try to go to 2 or 3 before I stride. Sometimes at 4,
Yeah,
if I really have to. It just depends on the matchup too.
there is only one match the entire day where anybody tried to deny my counterblast going to first stride.
Really? What was that?
Yeah. So he was actually a really smart player. It was the machining guy. The very first stride when I played him in the last round of Swiss, he sent me to 1 damage and was just swinging out my rears going to first stride. So I just did a Commander Thavas play to draw out, and I had the combo pieces, so I ended up drawing like 6-7 cards.
Nice.
He's like, "Oh, that's unfortunate."
Yeah. Yeah, Commander Thavas does shine in the moments where you're limited in counterblast or limited in resources sometimes in general.
Absolutely, and like people were asking me, like, "Why do you still run Commander? I never see you stride it," and that's exactly why. Those
Yeah.
situations where somebody wants to do that, it's just like I still have a play on first stride.
Exactly. Cool. I want to follow up with basically, can you give us like a quick rundown of your rounds? We've talked a little bit of your matchup so far, but having that better picture of like, your round 1, your round 2, any highlights and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So round 1 was against Overlord. I briefly touched on that, but more or less, I had a really good rush turn grade 1 and put him to 5 early, and he wasn't able to do much on his first stride, and that was the only stride he ever got. So unfortunately, he just didn't have hand to actually guard
Yeah.
Alexandra's turn.
Ouch.
Round 2 was against Chaos. The best way to put this is I actually felt bad, and this is why variance really sucks. But the
Oh, okay.
combination of me rushing him hard with him having a G assist on 2 grades, and he never rode 3 because he could never find the 3. It was pretty. It felt pretty underwhelming for him. But to be fair, you could also attribute it to the rush I was doing because he did damage 3 crisis. So
Wow, that's some well-timed damage then.
yeah,
I see what you're saying.
he just was never really able to play the game.
Yeah. Did he recover at all in game 2?
No. Round 3, I played against Dominate, which I feel is a pretty favorable matchup. More or less, I just baited out his Mukuros, and then after that, he wasn't able to do much. Not to mention, he also got great stuck in one of those games, 1-3. Round 4 was against the Ghidorah. That was the one where I nearly lost. Actually, something really important in that matchup. On my very last turn, I actually made a misplay. I didn't resolve my Bubble Edge, which if I didn't kill him on that Alexandra's turn, I probably would have died because the Bubble Edge, the 2 draws from it, would have given me a heal trigger and a PG.
Wow, that's super
Not
big.
in that order though. It would have been PG heal trigger. So I did my turn too early because I had a feeling I had game. But if I misread the situation, I would have lost because I didn't resolve my starter when I should have. There's no reason to keep in that column anymore, even though like I always wanted something in that column to threaten. It's just really greedy. I wanted it to be a 10k attacker to kill his rear guard, which I shouldn't have done. I should have resolved its effect to draw 2 cards and just gave up that column because I didn't need it at that point anymore. But I lucked out. We're just gonna go with I lucked out
for that part. Yeah. Okay.
Round 5 was machinings. As I said, he gave me 1 CB for my first stride turn to try and like circumvent what I can do. Unfortunately, and he even remarked he was just unlucky to face Thavas. It's his only real bad matchup in the event, seeing as he rests my stuff, I can just restand it with Alexandros.
Yeah.
So it was just that was just largely unfortunate for him.
Did he keep stunning your Vanguard as well?
He stunned my Vanguard once, but I had the 3 to re-ride.
Okay. Cool.
I do actually have some experience against machining, so I was prepared for when he would stun my Vanguard. Although that didn't happen in that round. That happened in top 4, actually.
Oh, so you faced them again later on.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So
was it 5 rounds of Swiss, or was there a 6th round?
5 rounds. 5 rounds of Swiss, and then top 4 because we didn't have, I believe it was 33 people for ARG to have top 8.
Oh, okay.
So in top
You
4,
went straight into top 4?
yeah, I went straight into top 4.
Huh.
I mean, if we did top 8, um, who was the 8th place person? If we did top 8, I would have faced the Chaos player again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we went to top 4, and I faced the machining guy again. And he, I even commented, I was like, this is unlucky. If you literally faced Asha or the Gridora on the other half of the bracket, you'd easily be in the finals right now.
Yeah.
But
Much a better time for him.
yeah, unfortunately, like against Thavas, there's really not much you can do. Like he stunned my Vanguard, but I had the re-ride. And then the second game, I just high rolled him really hard. I hit the crits on the first ride when I had on the first ride Alexandros when I had the Orthia down, so he just couldn't guard it.
Nice. Did you put it on a restander in front of Orfeo or just any unit?
Yeah, I put it on Adelaide. So
Okay.
I had an Adelaide with a draw trigger and a heal trigger. It's an Orthia boosting. So
Nice.
he just scooped because he understood that like he couldn't guard it. That it was gonna swing 3 times for 2 damage each time.
Yeah.
Plus he still had to guard another rear guard column that was a restander, so yeah.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew he didn't have enough feasible guard in hand to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
His deck though, it was really good. Like I got to watch him go off, like on the GBA turn ping ponging between the princess and that old machining grade 2 where when it attacks it stands something. Like it's pretty gross.
Oh, I didn't know it's standing in the main phase or in the battle phase.
Battle phase.
Oh, I didn't know they could do that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know the exact names of them, but I know the one's the princess.
Kind of reminds me of a Crayon Tiger.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Nice.
It was a really interesting deck to say the least. And then the finals was against Asha. I 2-0'd him with that amazing grade 2 game, to be honest, because when I went into the finals, because I finished my matchup way before theirs and I was watching theirs,
Yeah.
I pretty much had to figure out what I wanted to do against each deck, depending on whichever I saw. My idea for if I played against the Gridora was hopefully I'd actually see my resist units and I'd just call them early. And I would try to draw out the game to the point where I have massive Alexandros and he couldn't really guard them anymore. And I just moved my units forward and do a big attack.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Asha ended up winning, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at first. What I ended up deciding was I wanted to be as aggressive early as I possibly could, so that when I first start striding, he doesn't have a lot of cards in hand to really guard my early turns. Because I've seen that deck as time goes on, it's really hard to actually break through their hand after a certain period of time because they don't really use it other than guarding. So I pretty much resolved myself. Yeah, I resolved myself to the fact that like around second, third stride, I wasn't going to be able to kill them anymore because their hand was just probably going to be too big, plus the pressure they're putting on me.
Yeah.
So
I think the pressure from them is the more scarier part.
I agree. I agree. Like it's disgusting. You can't really risk taking anything because they're on high crit ratio, trigger ratios.
Yeah.
So like
and the
you have to
GB4
assume you're going to eat crits.
Oh yeah. He's like, you're dead at damage 4. It doesn't matter if you're 4 or 5 anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty lucky that I had a really good grade 2 game. I feel that largely saved me because I don't know if I would have. I don't think I would have went undefeated if we went to striding. I think he definitely would have taken a game off me. I was pretty sure him or the Gridora player would have taken a game off me in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like
lucked out.
Taito really was MVP.
Yeah, but in the matches where like it seems lackluster and nothing really went on, it was mostly Saberflow. So
making sure that you stayed in the game.
Yeah, like just like rounding out my hand, giving me the stuff I needed.
I guess I have a question for you in that size, in that general area. How big was your hand size?
My biggest hand was against machining where I had 16 cards in hand.
Nice.
On average, I operated with anywhere from like 9 to 13.
Okay. Cool. That's a good range though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I tend to average around 13 as well.
There was 3 or 4 games where I first rode Alexandros with GB4 or GB5 from aggressive G guarding.
Mm-hmm.
So like those also really mattered. If I had the cards in hand and my
Mm-hmm.
opponent would just keep attacking against me, I'd time my G guards to where I amassed like a really large GB number, and I go into
Mm-hmm.
a fat Alexandros turn, and that
Oh yeah.
was a large portion of why like some of my matchups were as strong as they were.
Oh yeah. Out of nowhere, you can get from 5 to 15K power up just by G guarding twice.
Yeah. So if I had double G guard, I'd typically go like the Galphilia into Ionis Galphilia play, or even the one time where I had into Ionis Ice Barrier into Galphilia, and my opponent's just like, I think I lost, and it's like, yeah, and I don't know how you're gonna survive this turn.
Yeah. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Cool. So, thanks for sharing your experience. Is there any plans for future events later this year?
Yeah. I was actually supposed to go to the Toronto Team Fest, but something really important came up, so I can't now anymore.
Mm.
However, I'll be at Toronto teams. Obviously, I'll be at the ARG Invitational in August.
So,
Um,
Philadelphia.
yes.
Nice.
So I'll probably see you there since I know you definitely have gotten your invite.
Yeah, that's true. I could go. I still
Yep.
have to figure that out if I want to go to that event.
I think you
It
should.
just depends on money. I mean, I would go for sure. It's just got to see the budget.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Mhm.
Basically, at this point in time, I don't think Aquaforce is going to be as viable going forward, unfortunately. So I
Yeah,
already
that's my
have like in mind a deck that I'm going to probably play for those events. I just have to piece it together.
yeah. Because for me, I'm trying to play the shit out of Thavas right
Same,
now.
same.
Yeah.
Like it's good, but these like between close and the new rearguard based decks, like it's really hard to still say that Thavas is going to keep the power that it's at. I feel like it's going to drop drastically over time, especially like because we don't even know what Bushy will end up doing with Bermudas. Like they could get really good support out of nowhere and be another deck that
That's
just
true.
pushes us further down the totem pole.
Yeah.
I do think that there will always be the place for Aquas and Thavas. I just don't think going forward after a certain period of time, it's still going to be tier 1 necessarily. Like it still might put
Yeah.
up results, but I feel like it's going to be like dying down.
Yeah. Eventually, decks get power creep, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anticipating this, I've already figured out what I'm going to be playing at the ARG Invitational,
Hmm.
more or less, unless like another set comes out throughout the summer and just changes that altogether. But I have a very good idea of what I'm going to play. I
Good.
probably won't play this deck at Toronto though. I'll probably play Thavas just to get like one last hurrah.
Yeah. Before the power creep.
Yeah, yeah. Enjoy it while I can.
Yeah, I agree. Cool.
But yeah,
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing your deck explanations and your tournament experience. And congrats again for first place, Mr. Champion.
thanks, man.
So, if other players wanted to reach out to you for more questions or help, how can they reach you?
Uh, they could contact me on Facebook. I'm Elijah Wade. Um, on Reddit, slash u backslash u backslash dmoc dmoc, or
Mhm.
on Discord, Zay and Proof's Discord for anybody who's in there, and also John's Discord. Um, more or less, I'm pretty sure there'll be ways to tag me in the video. I'll make sure to comment below.
Yeah, I'll
So
definitely tag you on Facebook, and then if you want, I could tag you on Reddit too.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
One day I'll
And
get a YouTube
I'll
channel
go.
going, but that's a lot of effort. So we'll see.
It's what you want out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Do you have any shout outs or anything else you'd like to mention before we end?
Yeah, sure. I want to shout out to my entire Windsor community and play group. They're all very good players. Everybody here, for the most part, has top or one events in the past. Like they're a great bunch. Especially the guy who got me in, John Pedro. Like I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh with the guy. He went to like one of the first ever nationals and stuff like that. Like he's a solid guy. So I'm glad that he's back. And my playtesting partner, Ref. I must have put him through like hundreds of Thavas games, so I thank him for enduring all that. And of course, you guys in the Discord for bouncing ideas off of even Mariyuki Hime. We may not, see eye to eye, but I also thank him for his inputs on the deck that he had. Riggs from Proof's Discord for our brief disagreement, because that kind of gave me fuel, like made me feel like I needed something to prove. And then, of course, Glenn Daddy, because dude always has my back, always is telling people like what I can do. So like I appreciate him looking out.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. Anything else?
No, that's all for now, I think.
Awesome. Thanks again, amigo. If you guys like this content, hit the like button, comment down below, share it with your friends, and subscribe. See ya.